Well, you're not going to believe this, but it says right here in my speech that the state of downtown is hopeful, strong, and just, what was it? You stole the line, Brandy. Oh, it feels good to be here. It feels good to see all of you. Thank you for that, Richard. I feel energized by your remarks. It's great to see our city coming back together, reopening, and getting together to do things just like this. And I know we're all kind of figuring it all out of how we network once again and mingle with one another. Are we hugging? Are we shaking? Are we bumping? We don't know quite yet. It's still a little awkward. I hope we can say goodbye to this, though. Can we not do that anymore? That should go the way of the Zoom happy hour. Let's just move on from that and leave that in the past. But it's been great to get out in our city. It's been great to get to some other cities. I was down in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago with my son, and I planned the trip itinerary as if I was traveling with another person who was 45 years old that hadn't been anywhere in 2 years. So we did the whiskey bars, the great cocktail hours, some spa time, rented a sports car, live music, and some surfing lessons. But he's 12 going on 32, so it worked out just fine. And on our trip, we got to the Fillmore. And I've been wanting to go to the Fillmore, just a great historic venue in San Francisco forever. I'm a huge fan of live music. I've been enjoying getting back to live music in our own city, but I wanted to get to the Fillmore. And so I said, we're going to the Fillmore. And it was just incredible to be in there, a place that Jimi Hendrix played plenty of times, along with hundreds of other acts, and they're all up on the wall there at the show posters that they put up there. It was a packed house that night. We had a great Italian dinner the few hours before, and we finally got to the Fillmore. And it was a great reminder of the value of our cities, of those experiences together. It was great to share it with my son, Parker. And on the flight home, on Alaska, of course. Where's Alaska? Yeah, on Alaska, on the flight home, I said, what was the highlight of your trip? The Fillmore. I was like, right answer. So it's great to be back. It's always a privilege to stand on this stage, but particularly so today. And I want to just offer a couple of thank yous and acknowledgements. First, thanks to our board chair, Kathy, for her just incredible support. Kathy, we won't do this on St. Patrick's Day again. Miss O'Kelly, I apologize for that, but thank you for that toast and for all your support. Thanks to our elected officials and our great partners who are here. I want to call out just a couple of folks. Rachel Smith, the CEO of the Seattle Chamber, who I think is straight back there. A big shout out to Rachel, who we've been attached at the hip since she took over the chamber about a year ago. She has lent her voice and leadership to the recovery of this downtown and really recognizes for our region to be healthy, this downtown's got to be healthy. I really appreciate Rachel's leadership. Tom Norwalk, the president and CEO of Visit Seattle, who's trying to retire this month. I think it might slip to next. 15-year career helping shape leisure travel, business travel meetings, and group business here in our city. Leaves an incredible legacy. As Richard noted, this is a place that people want to come and connect, largely because of the incredible work that Tom and his team have done. Tom, our downtown is forever grateful for your service and your career here in Seattle. And a final thank you. Richard noted, those essential workers that don't get to work behind a laptop in a coffee shop or in their pajamas, as a lot of us have over the last couple of years. I want to give a shout out and ask you to give a big thank you on the count of 3 to our ambassadors who've been out on the street. Out on the street every day throughout this pandemic, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing the nuts and bolts that are necessary to support this downtown and our recovery. And thank you for thanking them in here. We'll show them that video, but even better when you see them out on the street, and as I know you all do, please give them a thanks for their incredibly important and challenging work. So in my time with you today, and I'm sit between you and the happy hour reception, so I will move through this at a good pace here. But I want to reflect briefly on the pandemic and its impact to downtown, the progress that we've made, and our path ahead, and what we need to do to renew and reimagine our downtown together. And the last time I had the privilege of standing before you was February of 2020. I reported on 20 years of record investment and growth and development in our downtown, a period that you got to go back 100 years to really find a comparable period. And then a few weeks later, we learned that there were COVID cases in our own community, not just one, but because of the great work of Fred Hutch, estimated 400 or 500 at that time circulating for a couple of weeks. And we're all familiar with the impacts on our downtown and many others. And in some cases, there was a penalty for the downtowns that were the highest quality, top-tier downtowns like Seattle. We weren't used to seeing quiet streets and sidewalks. And we were put in a position of celebrating that because it meant we were all doing the right thing to protect each other and protect our healthcare system. And this pandemic has disproportionately impacted downtowns, but also communities of color. And as Richard noted, driven inequalities even greater in our community, impacted people on the margins significantly. But I think the way in which we came through this pandemic as a community, as a city, as a downtown, was really an affirmation of Seattle's values, an affirmation of who we are as a place. We demonstrated perseverance, collaboration. The public and private sector was working together. It's the way we got through this. That decision by many of you on March 5th to send your employees home when there was lots of other things still going on saved a lot of lives in our healthcare system. And we made that decision because we were working together with the public sector and we took this thing seriously. So collaboration, the perseverance, and the compassion, the investments that we made as a city and through the philanthropic community to help those most on the edge and most impacted over these 2 years. The way we came through this was an affirmation of who we are as a city. And as Seattle often has, we had an outsized impact on how the country and world battled and experienced this pandemic. From the work at Fred Hutch around vaccine trials, the University of Washington, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, and the investments that the Gates Foundation has made over these last 2 years. We had an impact beyond our own community, as we often do, in how our country and the world came through this. And then when Washington fully reopened on June 30th and business restrictions were lifted, as an organization, we charged into recovery mode in partnership with the City of Seattle and Visit Seattle. We invested a total of about $15 million over the following months to get back to the basics and do the hard work of getting our city open again, taking the graffiti down, getting up art, investing in artists and music and concerts and other events throughout our city to draw people back, to help people off the streets to get inside and get connected to services. We were really focused on residents and visitors at that time and welcoming them back to the businesses and the arts and cultural organizations that were able to open their doors last summer. And here's some of the early results, some data points here to highlight on our efforts of last summer. And we still have plenty of work to do, no doubt, but we have some bright spots and some early indicators. Looking at residential units, and these are occupied apartment units in downtown, we saw several thousand people leave their apartment units at in the midpoint of 2020, and we've seen those and more return in 2021. We have a record number of people living in downtown today when you look at condos and apartments across the greater downtown. Nearly 100,000 people calling downtown home. That's a great sign in our early efforts here at recovery. A couple other data points that compare where we are in each of these categories to our 2019 normal for that month. The summer saw a real strong return on leisure travel and visitors, and a lot of local visitors. Certainly people coming from out of state, but we saw a really strong recovery and rebound of people that live within 50 miles of our downtown. I think that's a great sign for our future. It shows the demand that people want to be back as things open up. The Pike Place Market, as we all know, was just one of the great bright spots throughout this pandemic. And I think Mary Baccarella and her team are here today. And there were days at the Pike Place Market over this last year where they were just about where they should be in a normal year in 2019. We saw a healthy return of hotel demand. Still a long way to go and a lot of work there, but the summer of 21 was a strong recovery from where we'd been in the single digits or teens when it comes to occupancy. And office workers, no secret there. We've been flat there, but in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a healthy return of office workers into our downtown. And from the survey work that we've done of about 200 employers in downtown, it really lines up with Richard's comments pretty well. A majority of employers say they want to be back downtown a majority of the week. And we expect, absent a future variant, to see more and more companies as we get into April, May, and June make those decisions. So these were some early bright spots that I think we can feel good about, and shows that the demand to be in this downtown is still there. And certainly Delta and Omicron, set us back as it did other downtowns. But as we moved into the fall and winter, we were able to maintain a good amount of momentum. We dropped the puck with the new hockey team and an incredible new arena at Climate Pledge. We saw the return of conventions that we hadn't had all summer. First convention on Labor Day and about 6 or 7 that happened throughout the fall. There were more openings in our arts and cultural community, the symphony opening in the fall, and thicker schedules at some of the venues that had opened in the summer. And we saw the return of holiday traditions in downtown, people wanting to gather again for those traditions they weren't able to take part in the previous year. And we've seen the reopening and reinvestment and repositioning and new openings of other businesses in downtown over this last year. The Great Fairmont Hotel completed a $25 million renovation in their lobby there. If you haven't been there, phenomenal food and beverage experience. And there's a little speakeasy tucked behind the bookcases there if you haven't been. Another speakeasy opened in Pioneer Square, and there's some irony to the speakeasy thriving in an age of mask mandates. But we're grateful for the speakeasies in downtown. And the Crocodile moved from 2nd Avenue over to the El Gaucho space. And we opened the PCC market over at 4th and University back in January. These are all positive steps toward our recovery and really demonstrate the ability for downtowns to adapt. And that's always been one of our strengths, to adapt in a time of adversity. So we're clearly on the right track. We're coming back. We're making progress. We're building momentum. But yes, we have a ways to go. But I believe we're strongly positioned as we look ahead for these reasons. As Richard noted, our mix is strong. We're not overly reliant on one sector. We've got retail, we've got a great food scene, we've got music. Our arts and cultural venues, entertainment and sports are tucked into the core of our downtown. We didn't build those all out on the edges. They help feed the vibrancy in our downtown. We've got this incredible, robust residential base. We've got a strong mix. We're not overly reliant on one sector. We've got big events on the horizon, like the All-Star Game in July of 2023, which will really be a week of activity, not just the game, coming to Seattle, an $80+ million impact. And make no mistake, we are a big events town now. We've always been able to attract great events, but with Climate Pledge, with this new convention facility that will soon be done, and with the hotel capacity that we've added over the last 5 years, this is a big events town now, and we've got a great new organization and partner at the Seattle Sports Commission led by Beth Knox, who's doing all they can to bring more events here. We're hopeful for World Cup and the Invictus Games and more to come after that. We finally have a plan to help those most in need on the streets of downtown, and we have a great leader in Mark Dones to execute that plan. We may have said goodbye to one quarterback this month, but we have a new quarterback when it comes to managing this crisis in downtown Seattle. And we're going to do everything we can to support you, Mark. This is critical work, and this is built on best practices from other communities. This is a failure is no option endeavor here. Our arts and cultural, entertainment, and sports sectors are our great assets here. Another asset for downtown as we rebuild. These are experiences that you can't get anywhere else in our region at the same level. You certainly can't get them from your kitchen and behind your laptop. We need to amplify, celebrate, support, promote those experiences in these venues by these organizations and workers. They are the fuel of our recovery. Our cruise season will be a record this year because of the great work of the Port of Seattle. We're going to have nearly 300 boats on the shores of downtown. That's an incredible asset that not a lot of other downtowns can claim. And we're making generational infrastructure investments that have really carried through this pandemic. The Convention Center addition, the incredible new waterfront that we'll cut the ribbon on in just a few years, and expanding light rail throughout this region. And all trains lead to and from downtown Seattle. And we've got 2 first-round draft picks in the NFL draft. Not an asset, if you ask me. So we are rich with promise. We are strongly positioned for a successful recovery, but we can take nothing for granted. And this is the path I think we must take in order to continue to sustain the great momentum we built over this last year. First, we need to be crystal clear about just what is at stake with the recovery of our downtown. We have made a big bet, as Councilmember Nelson noted, that we're going to have a healthy, vibrant, thriving, economically successful downtown so we can make investments in other parts of this city and region. Half the jobs prior to the pandemic in our city were located downtown. More than half the business taxes generated in this downtown. This downtown shapes the brand and identity, not just for this city, but for this region and really this state. We are at a fragile time, and we're competing with other cities and other downtowns that are in similar positions. So we can take nothing for granted. We must be clear about just what is at stake here. That must be front and center each and every day. Number two, the experience is everything. And job number one, as our panel, I think, articulated very well, is ensuring that downtown is safe and welcoming for everybody. If we don't get that done, the rest of it won't matter. People have more choices today, whether you're a consumer or worker, than they ever have before, and they will make them. We want them to choose Seattle. In order for them to do that, the experience has got to be phenomenal. And I think the expectation on the experience, whether you're staying, visiting, going out to eat, a retail experience, a hospitality experience, I think the consumer's expectation in that bar is even higher now. And we all have to rise to that bar and deliver that kind of experience that they're looking for. But it's got to be first safe and healthy for everybody. We have to stay the course there. We cannot normalize these conditions on 3rd Avenue. We cannot normalize this crisis of homelessness on our streets. We must work together to end this crisis, to create a safe and welcoming downtown for everybody. Number three, we must be inclusive. We must renew downtown Seattle so that everybody feels like they belong and they have opportunity and they're welcomed. This downtown must reflect the diversity within our region. And we must be inclusive in how we market, promote, program, and engage people from throughout this region in shaping this renewal and reimagination. There's a moral case for this, and there's also a business case. The most diverse generation in our history, Generation Z, is coming up behind all of us. If we want them to desire to be and take part in this downtown, they've got to see themselves here. It's our job to make sure that that's the case. And number four, we need to do this together and be intentional. We all have a role to play, the private sector, the philanthropic sector, and the public sector. We haven't been so good at that over recent years. We've been great at that as a city over many decades. And when you look out at the great accomplishments that we've had over the course of our history, the recipe has always been a great partnership between employers, the nonprofit community, and the public sector. We need to get back to that. That's our only path forward. The cities that figure that out are going to be the ones that recover and reimagine and renew faster. And we've got a recipe and a playbook here. It's the same one we used as a city to battle this pandemic. The incredible collaboration between nonprofit, philanthropic, the private sector, and public sector, which said we're going to take this thing seriously, and we all have a role to play, and we're going to adjust our course and strategy along the way. That's exactly what we did for the last 2 years. It's why we battled this better than just about any other region in the country. That's the playbook we need to use and deploy as we rebuild this downtown. And I've had dozens of conversations with individuals that sort of suggest that, well, aren't we stuck in this chicken and an egg scenario? You know, are the restaurants and retailers and all the fun things going to open back up if the people aren't there first? And are the people going to come if the restaurants and all the fun things and everything else aren't there like they were? I have one message for all of us. In that scenario, we are the chickens. Let's be clear. And we need to be courageous chickens with conviction. I wouldn't want to be in any other downtown as we look to renew and reimagine, given the assets that we have. They're enviable by just about any other downtown. We've made progress. The public is on our side. Voters care about this place. They understand those connections that Councilmember Nelson talked about, that the quality of the maintenance in my park is driven by the economic activity downtown. The public wants to see this place thrive once again, and they understand for our city to be healthy, our downtown's got to be healthy. And we've got great partners. And I think you saw that in the panel conversation. Wasn't that refreshing? We've got great partners now in our public sector leaders, and I thank them for being here. And the business and civic community right now in this city is in a position of strength, and we need to leverage that strength. And the conventional post-pandemic thinking has set up this tension between the online versus the skyline, right? And the virtual experience versus the physical one. But I think what's really at stake is some of the intangibles that Richard noted, that this is about being together in our shared humanity and how we understand one another, our sense of community. That's what's really at stake here as we try to renew and reimagine this downtown. Because the downtown's always been that vehicle that brings us together to connect, to understand one another, to innovate, to create, to celebrate together, to have those urban civic experiences together. That's what's really at stake. And, we're seeing the power of unity and coming together and resolve and collective action, which is so needed as we rebuild this downtown in a place 5,500 miles away, in Ukraine, where an incredibly brave citizenry battles much more formidable challenges than the ones that we're facing. And their courageous spirit should, I think, somberly remind us of just how fortunate we are here in Seattle. And remind us that we're always at our best when we're coming together, when we're working together for the common good. So in that spirit, let's continue to commit to a better shared future for all of us here and all of us in our community and for generations to come. Let's continue to lead the way in keeping downtown healthy, vibrant, and growing. Thank you, and I look forward to having a beverage with you outside. We really appreciate your support and you being here today.